guys, it's Leanna from PrimaGames.com, and we are hanging out with Ubisoft to talk about Ghost Recon Breakpoint. We just got to play it. I went ham as I usually do, but we wanted to talk a little bit about what's new and what the new game has to offer. So, what can you tell us about the new features that you guys added from Wildlands?
For us, the big thing with Breakpoint was really to put you even more in the boots of a Spec Op. I know in Wildlands it was being in enemy territory with this big open world, and now it's really about feeling how it is to be a ghost, like survival mechanics, injuries, slopes, but also ways to fight back, like the prone Camo, where you're hiding in the mud,
Yes.
which is a way to have fun, to be stealthy, and also impact the gameplay.
I love that. I'm not a stealthy person, but being able to hide in the bushes and assume the surroundings was really cool. So it looks like a very personal narrative, like a personal vendetta because of what happens with the Wildlands DLC. How personal does the story get? Does it all about revenge, or is it purely tactical?
I would say that it's a mix of two elements. From one point of view, yes, because your brother in arms have been killed. Of course, there is a personal situation. But in pure Clancy style, it's also a what-if situation. And you're gonna discover that on this island, which is the home of a scale technology with a tech giant, you will discover that there is a conspiracy being set up with drones, with ramification into politics, and you're gonna know more. So it's really a mix of personal and I would say more global.
You guys had a lot of new features with the weaponry and the items and how it loads out. What's your favorite new addition to Breakpoint that wasn't in Wildlands?
For me, I mentioned the prone Camo.
Yes.
And really, for me, the feeling I had sometimes with Wildlands is that there was some situation where, for some reason, you don't feel as much inside the boots of the Spec Op. And with the prone Camo, I like it because it's typically something I will do in real life. I mean, I'm not a big fan of moving around in mud, but this, when you can use it, it's also a way to look at the environment. So you look at the environment in a tactical way. And of course, I must admit that I'm also a big co-op player. And this is not something new, but I really think still that being able to play a leashless co-op in the whole map, it's something that is very specific to Ghost Recon.
How is the size of Aurora comparable to that of Wildlands?
The size of all the islands put together are as big as Wildlands. And on top of this, you have all the water. So it's much bigger than the previous game if you have a look at the global map. But in terms of gameplay, it's at least as big as the previous game.
That's really exciting. Okay, so there is a Wildlands DLC that just came out that's free, that bridges the gap between Wildlands and this. For those that didn't play Wildlands, can you just give a brief recap of how that DLC went down and how that directly ties into Breakpoint?
So called the Walker, which is basically the big bad guy in this game, happens to be also a ghost, and you do a mission with him in Wildlands, and at one stage he betrays you. And to understand the story of Breakpoint, you don't need to play Wildlands or to play that element, but on the other hand, for people who actually already are playing Wildlands, it's a nice addition. And I believe also that having this very strong enemy played by actor John Berntal, it also adds something like high profile, big enemy, and each time you play the game, you have a mission, you have a goal, and plus it's always good to work with high level talent like John.
Of course. What was the inspiration behind that character? Because he is very, from what I played, he is very intricate. Like, he's not just a standard bad guy. So what was the inspiration behind all of the layers of his character?
For us, we always say that combat situation or military situation are never black or white. There's always a gray area. And this is exactly what we're looking for in the story, but also with the actor. When we were discussing about which person would be the best to work with us, we had the feeling that John had the capability of embodying this character as well on the good side than on the bad side.
It looks like the bad side of Punisher, which is kind of funny. Do you guys have any fun Easter eggs for that with all of his roles that are very similar in the tactical line?
I would say that what we have, and we have discussions referring to a dog. I don't know if you followed our E3 show, so there might be something happening around the dog.
I like it. Did you guys have any particular inspirations behind Aurora? Because it's very different than Columbia. for the Wildlands?
So Aura is in the Pacific, and as an island in the Pacific, we had to research how this region looks like, what elements are there, how the trees are, how the nature is. On the other hand, it's also a work of fiction because we wanted to create a playground that makes the most of the game features we had. And for instance, by having lots of biomes, lots of different areas, mountains, trees, forests, in this small island, and even a volcano.
Yeah,
It's volcano for the raids, because the raids are coming inside the game. So really it's a mix of real life elements and also pure gaming fun.
I love that. I'm so excited. Okay, so obviously it's a military drawn game, so there's going to be political aspects. Is there anything going on in the world today that directly influenced some of the narrative?
You know, drones have always been inside Ghost Recon. You had them as people who were helping you for the fighting situations. And so when we looked at what opposition we could have for the ghosts, we had this feeling of what if the people who are exactly like you turned into bad guys. And then came the idea of leveraging the drones. And for us also it's a very good element in terms of gameplay, because Ghost Recon is a very realistic game from one aspect. If you make a headshot, it's gonna work, there's real realism, there's consequences, but we also wanted high-level enemies so that we can have high-level raids, high-level situations. And the good thing with the drones is that they can be tuned, improved, made stronger. So I think it fits very well in this narrative of having high-level enemies.
It does. I notice a lot of gamers have been very reactive lately, though, with anything with politics in it. Was there any challenges with what's going on, like in the United States, so in London and UK? There's just a lot of things happening right now. Was there any challenges where you're like, we don't want to touch any of that, we don't want that in our game?
You know, for us it's easy because we make Clancy games, and there's a history of Clancy games being what-if scenarios. And in the what-if, there's at the same time a realistic foundation, but there's also the fact that you just want to play with possibilities. So I would say if I look at the game, I think it can make you think about situations, but it's also a piece of entertainment.
Piece of fiction and awesome. Wildlands had a lot of support, a lot of events. How long is the timeline for the support of this? Is it going to be 10 years, or are you guys going to be rolling out the next phase and letting people go on that? What's the plan of support for Breakpoint?
I don't have elements in terms of timeline. What I have is in terms of deepness of the game. And the biggest thing we did with Breakpoint from this point of view is that we've added many layers of character development. Vehicles, weapons, perks, buffs. It means that we'll be able to develop the characters on the long run. And also because we develop them in solo, co-op and PvP. What I know is that we'll be able to propose support and post-launch plan, not just because we want to do it on the long run, and we did at least for 2 years for Wildlands and it's still going on, but also because there's many things we'll be able to develop with your characters. The same way that we have high-level drones, we're gonna be able to have high-level characters on the long run.
Do you guys have any plans for cross-save progression, where you can cross-save across platforms?
We're always looking at what's happening. What is important, we already have right now the fact that your progression is the same in solo, in co-op, in PvP.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're very excited for when it comes out later this year. So thank you very much.